Hello, hello. I'm Reb Risty with Revolutionize Your Marketing, Your Business, Your Life. And I'm here today with Greg Lear. I'm excited to talk to you, Greg. Yay. You have, I think, such an important business. You sit in the COO seat for a lot of clients, and it's something I know a lot of businesses, as they're growing and scaling, struggle with. As we get into this topic, Greg, maybe just start with a little bit of who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thanks, Reb. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here. You and I have known each other for a while, and it's great to be able to collaborate. So I very much value the opportunity. So, who is Greg? I'll tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, I'm the founder of Mammoth Results, and we're operations consulting business. Second of all, I'm a father, which is something I'm very proud of. I've got two daughters, 27, 29, wonderful professional young women. Very,
Nice.
very honored to have them in my life. And I've been married for 30 years to the same wonderful woman. So
Yay.
it's a wonderful accomplishment. I'm also a long distance athlete and ultra athlete. I've biked across the U.S. I've done Ironman. I've done all kinds of different events. And the reason I bring that up is a lot of what you need, the discipline, training, and stick to itness that comes with those, being able to complete those events, really rolls into business. So that's who I am in the background. I've worked for companies like GE, Mattel, Rainbird. I've made everything from sprinklers to Barbies to nuclear missiles. So I've had quite a background.
Well, that's really interesting. And I love that. Yeah, you bringing in that kind of story about your ultra distance athleticism. But what really sticks out to me is when you say Barbies to nuclear missiles. You have to tell us more about that.
So really, I love what I do. The application of what I do becomes secondary. So I helped put hair back on Ken, right? That was a where we had to work worldwide and bring in all these, fashionistas from all over and figure out how to do that. And when we were making nuclear missiles, it's the same process. You bring the experts in from different areas. For instance, in if I don't, or my network, my immediate people I'm working with don't have all the expertise that we need, then we bring in people like you and Rebel Marketing to help us fill those seats. So we apply a lot of what we do into the different businesses. As you're going to see as we go through this, I absolutely love what I do. I'm a problem solver. I'm also a communicator, which is somewhat of an anomaly for an engineer. I like
This is
be
true.
that glue between high level executives and the people who actually do the work. So I'm a solutions guy.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. I think I remember when we first met too, and you were in a group called Provisors and you did your pitch. It's really hard for somebody kind of with your technical background, but you've done a really good job of bridging that gap. And I'm sure your clients really appreciate that. That's going to make a difference for them.
Thank you. And as you and I know, and a lot of our clients know, owning a small business is tough. We come up with a great idea, particularly people who are delivering a product. Certainly, we provide services, but we think we've got a better way to do something. Maybe we've got the $1 billion idea, or more than likely, we just have something we really believe in. It's a product, it's a service, it's a way of doing things, consulting, whatever it is. And so we have to find a way to deliver it. And that's the challenge. We're
Yeah.
experts, but when it comes to the overall business entity, we get lost. And that's where we need people like myself, like you, other people, trusted advisors that can come in and help. So if it's okay, I'll give you a little bit of background information on exactly what I do and some examples.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, great. So I have in my career been asked to come in and help solve problems and say, okay, well, what problems? Well, let me give you an example. I work for a B2B business, worked for a B2B business. They only needed me for 30 days, and 18 months later, we wrapped it up, right? So that scope continued to grow. But it was a B2B business, and they were running out of money. So I said, hey,
Right.
we know you. come do something to help us out. And they had $20 million worth of inventory at the end of 18 months, actually at the end of 12 months, they were down to $10 million in inventory. We created $10 million worth of cash from what they had. Say, okay, that's great. What did you do? Well, we took apart all the processes from when the customer said I want it or I think I'm going to want it to when we actually delivered it. We found a way to get that communication from the customer and through systems delivered to the people who are ordering and planning. The warehouse was a disaster. We organized that. We found out where all the inventory was and got the accurate counts, and we were able to bring that together. So what does an engineer know about that? Well, it's very much like a lot of us service providers. We get exposed to different areas, and we're able to bring that in.
Yeah. So, and just to clarify, this B2B company you're working with, what was, I guess, they were taking too long to get their product to the customer, and were the customers dropping off? Like, what was happening there?
It's a great question. They had really good customers who were in duress because of the pandemic.
Mm.
So they started ordering more slowly. And the company I was working for, the B2B, they made pumps and filters. They didn't adjust, they didn't change their processes. So now they had everything coming in and the customer not selling. And so it was a wonderful opportunity to go in and take their systems apart. And by the way, now the business is returned, they're tuned up and ready to go, and the cash is no longer.
And I bet, even though I'm sure that's a horrible experience to be running out of cash, that forced them to change their processes. They may not have done that.
Absolutely. And we all run into that situation. Why would somebody need to call you, right? Well, they've got a problem, they've got pain, they're not happy with what's going on. And so it's a great opportunity. It's really critical that professionals like you and I and other service providers can come in and speak the language. And when I talk about the language, it is you've got the leaders and the C-level suite people, and you've got the people that do the work. And somehow we have to be able to communicate up and down that chain. And here's the key. If they have a problem and you're able to find a solution, the only way to implement it is through people.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example. One of the challenges that we had in a business, a local San Diego company, is that their sales were flat. They were taking 7 weeks to deliver on their lead times. Their on-time delivery is under 60%. It didn't matter what marketing, sales, and quite frankly, product design they had, they couldn't get out of their own way. They asked me to come in. We took apart their process from when the customer said, I want it, to when we produce it. And guess what? We rebuilt that. Manufacturing was not their problem. It was communication. Sound familiar? Communication between when we start to say go and we actually go. So we improved their on-time delivery from 50% to 90 plus. We got their lead time from 7 weeks down to 1 week, 2 weeks, on average 21 days. And as a result, they were able to improve their sales over the first 6 months by over 50%.
Wow. In 6 months. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Very excited about what we do. And I think what's important in all of these challenges that we get into is there needs to be a point of pain, which most business owners have, a point of pain, or if they're fortunate enough to the business is going very well, what they want to do is get to somewhere else, right? They want to make that next quantum leap, and they don't always have the experts in-house. A good example, some people bring in EOS, right? And they're rooms or seats at the table for all kinds of different areas. EOS incorporates many of the things that are required. However, who's going to do the work, right?
Yep, you're right.
They need people like you, like me, like other service providers to come and help them to go from their strategy to actual implementation.
Yeah. And it's so true. Especially as a small business, you can't always fill each of those seats. And I joke all the time. I've got tons of ideas if you want ideas, but it is when the rubber hits the road, who's actually going to execute? And that's really the differentiator, right? Especially in service based businesses like ours. It is how do you execute?
I love the fact that you said you've got all kinds of ideas. If they were looking for you to generate ideas, that'd be wonderful. It'd be a lot of fun.
I
But
know.
how would it provide what they really need? And that's results. And I think that's where you set yourself aside. I know it's where I set myself aside, in that you have to move from that we should or we want to into I did, and the very tangible, measurable results. If at the end I'm able to help companies figure out what to do and actually do it, and they can measure the results, it provides a lot of value. If we don't have something that can be measured, that goes to the bottom line, that goes to growing the business, then we're not successful.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I think marketing always has had that challenge. The nice thing is in the digital world that has changed a lot. We can measure a lot, but then it goes back to what's the strategy? How are you driving all of that? And I agree. The communication part with leadership to those that are executing, that has to be a very clear line. So very
Okay, let me
interesting.
put you on the spot. I'll move to the interviewer. So you said tangible, measurable results. If I were to hire you, what would those results be? How would I know that you guys were effective?
It's a great question. Oh my gosh. Hey, you're not interviewing me. No. um, so what we've done and we've shifted over the last couple of years, but this year in particular, we are investing in a CRM. I mean, I've always used one on my sales side, but what we're really doing that's different for our clients is we used to kind of piecemeal different pieces of like social media KPIs, email KPIs, maybe if they're doing any SEO or paid campaigns, and we kind of piecemeal it here together. It would come together, we could see results, but it was a lot harder to gauge and especially be more proactive in the sense of we were writing these reports once a month, once a quarter, and aggregating them together. So now we have a CRM platform that we are really starting to leverage in a different way. It's got that immediate real time reporting. So that's something that we're changing a lot. One of the things I changed up quite a few years ago is whenever we do a strategy or plan, we have very clear KPIs, whether it's and this is not the best example, but conversion rates on, well, this is a good example. Conversion rates on a landing page for a paid campaign. It's crazy to me how many people will pay lots, thousands of dollars to drive traffic to their homepage, but they aren't converting it. And they don't even realize that just driving traffic to your homepage is not a strategy. It's just throwing money away. So we do differentiate in that result, and we're able to create messaging that's really engaging, help the client understand what the KPIs are they should be measuring. We never ever take credit or get blamed for sales, but we sure make sure we follow the path all the way to get that lead marketing qualified to sales qualified, and that the sales team has everything that they need. And that's also the reason we love the CRM, because the sales team is now tied in with the marketing team, unlike we've ever been before. So I think that's how we do it.
Wait, I think you may be an operations person wrapped in the marketing business.
Well,
You have
I've never been accused of that.
mentioned KPIs more often than I do, and I'm crazy for KPIs, so key performance indicators. And you also mentioned strategy. Many times people go and they say, "Hey, what is it that you do? What's your secret sauce?" And you have to have a strategy, right? Maybe that strategy is really well developed, or maybe it's on the, just very informal from an afternoon meeting. But you have to have that strategy. Then you have to figure out what to do about it, right? They need a
Yeah.
marketing plan, sales plan, operations plan to get it. How do you know where you are and where you're going? Well, you have to establish key performance indicators. So, what is my secret sauce? It's number one, really, really understanding what it is, not what the business owner is asking for, but what they really actually need, right? Convert
Hmm.
that over into actionable plans. And then, how are we going to measure it? What's your current performance? Where do you want it to be, and then managing between those. Now, we can apply that in something like the examples that I've given, or we can apply it to other areas. Certainly, cash conversion cycle. We get heavily into Six Sigma and other problem solving methodologies. We have the 5 whys, we have fishbone diagrams, we have so many different statistical process controls, so many different methodologies to solve the problems. But you have to know where you were, you have to know where you're going, and you have to know where you are along the continuum.
Yeah, no, I love that. That reminds me, P90X, Tony Horton was very popular. Remember, he'd always say, don't know, how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been? He used to say that in all his videos. So,
Whether I'm doing long distance events or working, it's absolutely the same. Where do you want to get to? Where are you? And what are you going to do between now and then so that you can get there? You can imagine if I rode 3,000 miles on my bike in 25 days, I didn't get on that bike day one and go do it, right? I had a
right.
series of goals and milestones. It's very much like business owners. And business owners have the skills they need to launch a business. They don't always have the skill, marketing, sales, operations, the skills to get through those inflection points. And that's where we can really come in. I know one of the questions that you had in your list that was out there, and that is, tell us about some lessons that you've learned, right,
Yes.
in your
Yes.
business. And I gave a lot of thought to that because if we're not learning, we're not progressing. It gets back to communication. When I first started this, I would ask people questions, they'd give me answers, and I would trust those, right? No. Give you their heartfelt, most sincere answer, but that doesn't mean that they know the root cause behind that. So in our case, our on-time delivery isn't good, or our new products aren't selling. Okay, that's fine. Why? Okay, why? And you really have to get back to what is actually fundamentally wrong. So for me, an area that I have learned really to take the time, and that's to ask a series of questions to understand, not face value what I'm being told and what's keeping people up at night. It's the contributing factors behind that add up to the net result.
Yeah. No, and it's that, but why? But why? I believe that's part of scaling up, which EOS Tractions kind of came from. I don't want to say born from, but that was one of the lessons that we would do in scaling up is, okay, identify the problem. Why is that? And you keep digging for the why. Yeah, I agree. And as a business owner, it is hard to understand fully because you're so close to it in the day to day, and you want to love your ugly baby, so you can't admit that it's ugly.
Why would we think, as rational professionals, why would we think that if we grow up in a certain discipline that we can do all the others, right? I mean, it's just not practical. People don't have that background. So in my world, there's an inflection point at 2 million, 7 million, 20 million, where you move from the crazy person that had some special little thing they were doing to where they're delivering it to the market, to where they're delivering a lot of it, and they had to back off. That's 7 million. And when you get to around 20 million, now you have to bring in professional people to fill the different seats.
Yep.
Our service industry can provide that leadership at various roles, at various stages and various roles.
Yeah. Well, it is the curse of that founder entrepreneur, right? Because you have to do everything in the beginning, and then you get the bad habits of, oh, I can just do it myself. And it's true whenever I talk to somebody, potential client, just whoever, and they're like, I don't need marketing. My business is so good, blah, blah. I'm like, great. I only work with companies that want to grow anyways. So it kind of throws people off, but it is that idea. If you clearly believe you don't need marketing or sales or other professionals, then, and you love what you do, then, and you love the size of your business, that's great. No one should argue with you. Be happy with that, but it definitely is not the way to grow. And we know that.
And we do get ourselves in a situation where people don't go out and seek us unless something is hurting, or unless they want to be in a different place. So maybe their business is great and they've been stuck at $2 million for $10 million. They need you to help drive the traffic, the marketing, the conversion over into sales. They need me to be able to understand the operations to get us from here to there.
Yeah. My guess is more people probably don't realize they need operations or a real professional COO level person. When do you find a company comes to you? Are they suffering? Like, how do they know they should come see you?
I wish that people came to me after a strategic planning meeting where they said, we've got these rocks, we've got these business goals, critical elements that we need to execute. That would be terrific because it would be less frantic. Generally, people come to me because they've got a significant problem. Maybe they've got a supply chain, can't get their product, or their design doesn't work, or they've got a big manufacturing operation who can't put things out, or they run out of cash. And while I very much enjoy that, because you can, when people really are desperate for change, is when we can do the most, right? It would be nice sometimes if people came in a less frantic state. But if they're hurting, if they want something different, it's a wonderful opportunity.
I love it. I think I think marketing, it varies. We've got the clients that, are just sick and tired of what they've been doing. They want to change things. But with marketing, it's a little bit easier to understand, right? Most of us have been marketed to. So in their mind, it's probably they understand it in the sense of, yeah, I know I need it or I want it, but don't know what I can do with it. So
What I've seen when I was a W-2 or working in smaller businesses is that we would have these great marketing people, right? Well, unfortunately, they were brand new. They didn't know what they were doing. They were learning on the job,
yeah,
which is terrific. You can't fault somebody for doing that. There is some advantage to somebody who's experienced challenging things in the past. They need leadership from people like you. They need somebody who can help them mentor, and maybe they grow into that role at a different time, maybe they don't. But it's really difficult to take a young professional and say, go fix it. What experience did they draw on? Yes, they've got a good
yeah.
education, but you need people who have delivered in the past to show you how to get there.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. A lot of times we find smaller companies will hire maybe a mid-level, less experienced person because of budget reasons. I get it. But then they put a lot of demands on that person and it's not really fair. They're not setting them up for success. So I agree with you. Having a higher level at the fractional level makes a lot of sense until you get to a point where you can bring in someone full time to sit in that role. So much, much appreciated. Well, Greg, I know we're kind of coming towards the end of our time. I'm sure you have tons more examples, but one of our other questions that we like to ask are, what are just some actionable tips or things that you would, if you were talking to a potential client, who's having operation difficulties, what are something they could just do today, get them started?
Okay, it's a great question. The first thing that people need to do is actually to take the time to understand what their challenges are. It's one thing to say, oh, I've got this issue, right? It's another to sit down and actually look, how are we measuring it? Do we actually have an issue? So that's number one, understand the issue. The second thing is to ask these questions that, you alluded to the whys earlier. Why are they facing that challenge, right? And according to lean methodology, you have to go 5 whys deep if you want to fix it, and you have to go 7 whys deep if you never want to face it again, right? So you have to ask, why is all that occurring? And then the tough part is actually to do something. How do you
Yep.
move from understanding to really understanding to taking actions? And that's a challenge. So what should people do? Identify their problems, measure them, figure out why those are actually occurring, and then take measurable steps, which are reflected in the KPIs.
Got it. Yeah, I love that. It makes a lot of sense. Do you recommend, is there, short of working with you, are there books, or you mentioned Six Sigma, you've got EOS. Like, is there any one that stands out for you?
Okay, nobody's ever asked me that, and I love it. I love it because we are in the age of information age, whatever we call that. And I personally am constantly looking and trying to understand and learn. So definitely pick up EOS and read it cover to cover. I've read it so many times, and I'm an operations guy, right? There is nothing revolutionary in that book, but it sure is a grouping together of really, really sound methodologies. So do that. Then get on ChatGPT and go and study Lean, Lean, Lean methodology. And it's think of a toolbox with all kinds of wrenches and screwdrivers and micrometers and everything. And so you've got that toolbox, and inside that Lean toolbox are a whole bunch of problem solving techniques. Some are extremely complex, some are very simple. We've talked about a few of those today. So get some really good input, go out there and do some reading, go out there and do some research. And then when you go to take the actions that we talked about just a minute ago, you can use some of those methodologies to make a difference.
All right, perfect. That's great. Well, and I love EOS too. A lot of my clients are on it now. I think it's important to have some kind of a system, whichever one you pick, lean into it, or and really follow it. And I agree with you. Well, I haven't asked this question in a while, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say. What's the best non-business advice you've ever gotten?
I absolutely had no problem coming up with this because it is our family motto. It's what we've asked ourselves all the time, and that is saying it's not what happens, it's how you handle what happens. And for us, raising two young women who became professionals, there's a lot of things that can occur that can disrupt them from reaching their full potential. My wife was a long-term educator. Parents are a problem, right? They create all kinds of things. But what do you do with that, right? How do you take what's happening and convert it into and handle that appropriately? When I'm doing my long distance events, I do events that last 24 hours, right? You're going to face dilemmas and challenges as you go through this business, everything. We're always being bombarded with good things, bad things. You win the lottery, you have personal challenges, all these different happen. What are you going to do with that element that gets added to you? How are you going to handle it? And I really feel it's what defines you as an individual, as a parent, as a professional. Is what are you going to do when things happen? How are you going to handle it? So it's not
Yeah,
what
I like
happens,
it.
it's what you do with what happens.
Yeah, very, very true. Very good. Very wise words. Thank you. Well, Greg, as we wrap up here, what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you and learn more about what you do?
Sure. Well, let's drop my contact information into the chat. But
Perfect.
get Mammoth Results, just how it sounds, Mammoth Results, plural.com. It's my website, and on there you can get a link to send me out a questionnaire. Or if you want to go direct, Greg dot Lehr, Lehr, and Mammoth Results is my email. So I love what I do, and I love to provide solutions. And if somebody has a challenge that they would like to discuss with me, I do a lot of work with San Diego State volunteer work. I love getting on the phone or having a coffee with somebody and understanding their issues, providing whatever support I can. And if it becomes something that they need additional support, then I can support them. But in the meantime, I love problems, I love challenges, and so I like to talk with people about when they're experiencing this.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and Greg, we will drop all your contact info in the description and in the notes in our posts. So thank you so much for being a guest. I really, really appreciate it.
I was a little bit nervous about this, and I have to say, I shouldn't have been. You're a wonderful professional and a great interviewer, and
Thank you.
thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And for all of those out there watching, if you want to get interviewed on a podcast, you've been thinking about starting a podcast, reach out to Rebel. It is one of the best ways. You get to talk with good people, learn a lot, and have fun creating content, because we all know creating content for marketing can be hard, but we need to do it. All right, so reach out to Rebel and revolutionize your marketing, your business, your life.
Thank you so much, Reb. Have a good day.
Thank you.